Yeah, welcome to another edition of the 365 FM podcast. Today I have my special guest, Dan Barba. He is Microsoft MVP and founder of Strathos. And yeah, um, we have a really interesting topic today. It's the title is Behind Tech, Leadership, AI, and Imposter Syndrome. And today in this episode is about much more than technology. We talk about the leadership, AI, pressure, community, imposter syndrome, and what it really means to grow as human in the tech industry. So, welcome, Dan. Tell us a little bit about you. Who is the person behind the MVP title, and what did your company do?
Oh, don't start with that. The person behind the MVP. Yep. So thanks first off. Thanks for having me on the show. Really looking forward to having the conversation. So a little bit about me. So I've been operating in predominantly the dynamic space was where my career started
Mhm.
back with CRM 3.0, and then sort of as everything kind of evolved, I've moved to Power Platform, and then I've moved to Copilot, and now pretty much, where I'm I'm involved in most of the mainline technologies, Azure, M365, Fabric, all that kind of thing as well. So you inevitably your technology breadth evolves over time. That's sort of kind of like 20 years running practices in the UK, basically, and then I've just started up my own company called Strathos. Although I much prefer how you pronounced it. That was epic. And essentially, what I do now is take that knowledge and experience that I built up over the last 20 years, and I focus that with Microsoft partners to help them get through their growth barriers. So understanding how they want to scale and how they want to get up to that next level from SMB to mid-market to enterprise, and how they transition, because the challenges are very different at those different growth paths. So we work through those, identify what those are, and then help them through them. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Strathos does. Um,
That's awesome. What after this years in tech, what keeps you passionate about about to staying in tech after all this time?
I think it's for me. It's tech and business for me, that you can't have one without the other. And I guess that's where the human element comes in as well. But for me, technology is the tool. It's something that will enable you to do something, but you've truly got to understand the business first in order to apply the tech in the right way. So what I love and what keeps me going is consulting on the business side is fabulous, because I just get to work with so many companies in so many different industries all the time. One minute you could be working for a travel agency, the next minute pharmaceuticals, the next minute retail. It's always changing, and I love that side of it. But then the technology is, as we know, changing rapidly itself. Power Platform didn't exist when my career started. Obviously, Copilot is, coming into full sort of flourishment now. So you're just always challenged to learn. There's always something new, and I love that. That's what drives my passion. Just keeping on top of everything.
Okay, when you meet your younger self, so today, what would you think would he surprised most when he
What
see you? Your younger
what would they?
self, when you meet him, what think you would surprise him most?
I think he'd be surprised that I was running my own business, which is something I never thought I would do or be capable of doing. But I guess that probably is erring on the imposter syndrome piece. But I think that's probably the biggest change, the biggest surprise. But I'm absolutely loving it. It's fantastic.
Did you think about or what separate a good technical leader from a truly inspiring one?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. A good technical leader from an inspiring one. So, I think for me, leadership is all about inspiring.
Mm,
It's about having vision. Motivating others to go on a particular path. Being being someone who doesn't just is not a manager, is someone who is looking to the future. And I think technical leadership sometimes can err on the I'm going to put in best practice, and I'm going to be able to govern this, that, and the other. So there's certain technical skills that absolutely you need as a leader, but they're more kind of operational stuff. For me, I think a strong technical leader is someone who's got a good handle on the now, but also a good handle on the what's coming around the corner. How is it going to affect us? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it going to mean that we're going to change how we operate and how we move? I think for me that's critical to a good technical leader, because otherwise you stay current but fairly flat. Whereas I think the excitement and the passion and the innovation comes from being a little bit more towards that edge of technology innovation.
And what will you say, was leadership always natural to you, or something you had to learn?
That's another interesting one. I like these questions. These are good. Um, I think um, I think it's something I've learned, to be quite honest.
Mhm.
I've learnt from experience. I've learnt from past leaders I've worked with, and that's good and bad, because they're equally as important to have good experiences and bad experiences. Um, but also a lot of theory. I read a lot of books. I
Mm.
really like sort of psychology and leadership and management. Those kind of books. So I think a lot of it is learnt either through past experience, theoretical, or like technology, hands on. You know, I've run hundreds of teams with hundreds of people, um, and you know what? You try things out, you learn, you fail, you try and recycle and continuously improve, and try and do things better. First team I managed versus the last team I managed, I will have managed those and led those people very very differently. So for me, I think it's more learnt than natural capability.
Okay. When, yeah, you say you failed, so is there any mistake where you have learned a lot from, where you say, oh, this was something I really I get
Um,
inspired, or
yeah, it's a really interesting one actually. Is I'm quite an empathetic person. I like to understand how others, or make sure I try and understand how other people are feeling. What I didn't actually realize was you can actually be too empathetic, which I didn't even realize it was a thing, right? Um, but I think what happens sometimes when you're too empathetic is you surround someone potentially in a bubble that stagnates their growth and their development and their experience as well. So I think for me that was an interesting learning to think, actually, you know what, I've got to make sure I let other people fail as well. I've failed and learned. Why would I wrap people in cotton wool so that they can't fail? So it's balancing that empathy and the coaching and the feedback. So I think that was a big learning.
yeah. What did you think it's about teams and leadership? So you I think you need to build trust in a team so they follow you. What's your tips here?
Oh, there's so many. So yeah. I think one of the biggest human skills that we underdevelop and we under recognize how important it is our ability to build rapport with other people. They have the concept of this rapport triangle. And you basically it's levels of trust that you have and the levels of interaction you have with people, and the higher you get in the rapport triangle, the more people are trusting of you. And a lot of people sort of like can sit with their professional relationships at the bottom level, which is, hi Mirko, nice to meet you. How was your day? That kind of really baseline. You could be anyone I'm talking to next level might be, oh, how was that fishing trip you went on last weekend, and how's your dog Barney? And you kind of you're exposing a little bit more information, therefore you can have more involved personalized conversations, and you kind of build that up and build that up. And I think for me it's one of the most important things to develop, because our jobs are high stress, as a consultant, but also as the recipient from a client perspective. We're on very time sensitive, very important business programs, business transformation, and improvement programs, and they're high pressure, you know and what makes them much more pleasurable to work in an environment is where you've developed a really good relationship with the people, both your project team, but also wider stakeholders as well. And you've built that wider trust. So inevitably, when the pressure starts mounting, you've almost got some professional relationships, professional friendships, maybe, as long as they don't go too far. But you can lean on those in times of high pressure and go, you know what? I know you dropped the ball there, but I trust you're going to pick it up because I feel like I know you. I feel like there's some trust there, or you missed that deadline when you were supposed to, create those accounts for our production system. So that's going to delay go live. So, okay, but I know you'll get it done. I know you're busy. Again, showing some of that empathy there as well. So I think that's really critical.
Yeah, I think it was Satya Nadella. He says empathy is not a soft skill; it's the hardest skill we learn. What's your first reaction when you hear this quote?
So empathy is not a soft skill. It's a hard skill.
We learned. You have to learn.
We, yeah, I see. So this goes back to the question around your leadership, whether it was whether it was learnt or natural. I think with empathy, I think there is a more. I would say I would more lean into the fact that there's a
Mhm.
lot of natural capability with empathy.
Mm.
It tends to be that you have a certain emotional makeup that makes you more empathetic or less empathetic. You know, um, my daughter's got ADHD. She is one of the key indicators there is she demonstrates a huge capacity for empathy. You know,
Mm.
and sometimes too much, right? So she goes too much and gets too involved, emotionally involved in certain situations. So, so you think about like, is it natural or is it learned? I think you can learn it to a degree. Certainly, educational awareness, but I think it's more natural. I think than learnt, but it's certainly certainly aren't. It's not black and white, right?
What did you think? It's when we see tech leaders. You saw your daughter has too much empathy. I think often that's something in tech, especially leaders. They underestimate the empathy topic.
Yes, well, empathy. It's not just empathy. I think it's these human-centric skills as a whole. We have. I mean, I've seen this for 20 years, and and been a tech leader myself, or am a tech leader myself. And I still see a tendency, and I know other people feel the same. I see a tendency that we're so focused on the technology that we're missing focus on those human centric skills. And I'm just not talking about just what we're talking about in terms of soft skills. So your empathy and your rapport building, communication skills, but the wider things that make us a great consultant as well. Commercial acumen, an appreciation of the life cycle of a project and project management, change control. All of these surrounding elements that make us great consultants. And I think as leaders or tech leaders, it's there's a tendency just to focus on the first word, that tech piece. I often use often use the phrase we're technical consultants. Well, there's two words that there's technical and there's consultant. We're very good at focusing on the technical. We're less good at focusing on the consultant piece. And I think it's individuals, but also leaders that need to appreciate. I think that we need to refocus some of our energy on developing and encouraging and nurturing that consultant element. Otherwise, I find we just do whatever the customer wants us to do rather than what the customer needs us to do. And sometimes those things are different, sometimes wildly different.
Yeah, and then we think, or we have this other. I think we talk a lot of empathy, but we have also emotional intelligence as topic. What will you say differ these topics, and yeah, how we can or yeah, um, yeah, can what's the difference? First, ask this. What did you see there?
So I think empathy is a particular skill, and I think EQ, or emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, is more of a broad set of skills that encompass it. So active listening, for example, is another skill like empathy, but it's part of the wrapper, or what I would call the wrapper of EQ, or the emotional intelligence piece. The ability for you to engage with someone mostly non-verbally, just letting them know, just like you're doing now. Like, we're on camera, even though this is audio, but you're smiling at me, you're nodding, you're making eye contact. You're giving me silent encouragement that you are actively engaged in this conversation, and that is a really, really important skill to learn. Especially in this day where 99% of our stuff is remote. you know it's really important to have your camera on and actually to interact with people, because that, I can't remember what the statistic is, but the large percentage of your communication that is non-verbal. I'm sure we'll find the stat after the show and maybe put it in the notes, but it's a huge proportion that is non-verbal. And when most of our stuff is virtual nowadays, and we don't have our cameras on, for instance, we can't participate in some of these activities. You're only getting, a quarter of the story, which is quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's Schultz von Thun says you cannot non-communications. So
Mhm.
everything you do is communication. So
Yep.
um, we have this topic I really found it interesting: remote work. Um, did we lose empathy and emotional intelligence, or think uh, we need to change this remote back all to the office, or what's your explanation?
Oh, you said there would be no controversial topics here. This is probably a big one. So, I love remote working. I've remote worked for the majority of my career. So for me, when things like COVID happened, it wasn't really wildly different. Less visiting, going out and visiting clients and things like that. But it wasn't wildly different. But I think some human interaction is incredibly healthy and very much needed. If you spend 220 working days in a box office like mine, where I can nearly touch the walls with my hands, not interacting with anyone really apart from video calls, I think it diminishes what you do, and how you feel. I think being able to go into an office or going and see clients, or that's why I really enjoy the user groups and the conferences that I go to, because just interacting with other humans is really important to me. So I think remote work, I don't believe in the, oh, you should be in three days a week in the office. That from someone who's an experienced consultant, my kind of role, your kind of role. I think we're autonomous. We should have trust there. If trust sometimes is the issue, the old fashioned issue that keeps people regimented to an office environment. But there are perfect scenarios. When you get people who are in apprenticeships, or people who are learning, doing high amounts of learning. you know I find that much richer experience if you're actually face to face. You're sketching stuff on a whiteboard, moving post-it notes around. There's certain events that lean into human interaction, that are good to be in the office for and good to be interacting for. So, but yeah, do I believe that someone who spends 8 hours a day on Teams calls should do that from an office environment? No, I don't really see the value of that. You know.
What did you think it's today is harder? It's managing technology, or it's managing people?
Uh, Loving these questions. These are really getting me thinking. Um, which do I think is harder, managing technology or managing people? Um, I would say I'd say 50-50, to be quite honest. I
Yeah.
hate to sit on the fence by it, but I think I was having this conversation the other day, funnily enough, in Color Cloud with Scott Duro, Reti Isles, and Nathan Sweeney, and this topic sort of came up, kind of about sort of like, is AI making us work smarter?
Mm,
And we were all kind of like, well, yeah, it does make us work smarter, but it doesn't have make us work harder as well. you know because there's one level which is an expectation that you're using AI, therefore you're more efficient. You're doing more stuff. um but the other part is, you're now compressing and cramming
mm,
so much more into each day. It's like, oh, I before I could write a training plan and a statement of work and it'd take me 2 days. Now I can do it in a day. So guess what, I do two training plans and two statements of work in that time. And we're always busy, and AI is putting that little bit more pressure to be busy, almost busier and busier, I think. So I think balancing managing people and balancing managing technology, I think, it's hard work, to be fair, you know.
Mm, that is awesome. So you have the buzzword AI. So
Hey, we did well. 20 minutes before we mentioned AI. I think we did
yeah.
quite well there.
What's exciting you most about AI right now?
Um, I, I think very simply just the opportunity. I like the fact that we are only just scraping the tip of what is achievable, what the potential is of AI. From simple personal efficiency kind of savings to full-on agent workforces with agents managing teams of agents managing teams of agents. I think we're still just scratching the edge, and I find it akin to when I first got given a Copilot license. I think I used it like once a week, you know and slowly that cadence like exponentially went up, and now I struggle. I've been on here 20 minutes and I haven't used Copilot, and I'm like, oh, I'm literally living and breathing it, like whether it's typically Copilot, but other AI tools as well. You just it's ingrained in everything I do now, and every day I will find another new use case for it and go, oh, I never knew I could do that. Oh, that's genius. Oh, love that.
Yeah, I think especially in Copilot, I think Microsoft, yeah, they have make big marketing and so on, and then this not working, this not working. And I think now that it's working really fine. I think this was also a
Yeah, I
little.
think it's when they made the switch. So that they when the marketing originally came out, it's very much about personal productivity. It was like, a return on investment for how many days or minutes you can save out your day. And then they pivoted, and I think that's where the success came. They pivoted to the fact that actually this is about understanding your business processes and understanding how automation and AI can come into your business processes. And I think that's when it really kind of hit home, and it was like, oh, okay, hang on, this isn't just about me writing nicer emails, or getting my team meetings transcribed and some AI summary notes coming through. It's like, this is bigger than that. This can really be a game changer. You hear of agents landing and saving hundreds of thousands of pounds, you know, just by developing, an investment of 5 days to build an agent and test an agent, deploy it, and you see this huge savings. I mean, that's a hypothetical example, but there are lots of examples there where you're developing in an agent, and it's having a fundamental shift in how businesses run.
Is there anything you say that worries you about AI?
Worries me. Um, Worries. I guess the responsible use of AI would be something that worries me. Um, it can, if left untamed, just be a route for laziness, I think. And through laziness becomes, problems, poor data, bad security posture. There's a hundred ways where if you're lazy with AI, you can really set yourself up to fail big style. You know, so I think for me that's probably one of the worries. It's democratized the technology in such a brilliant way that absolutely anyone can access it, but that old adage, with great power. But not everyone is taught in the right way, is taught to understand responsibility and accountability for the AI tools. Things like the EU AI Act are coming in, or come in, and obviously evolving. That's going to have a massive impact on people's responsibility, which I think is a good thing. America have got NIST, and there's a few other regulations dotted around in various different countries. So I think people are getting it. I just worry about how many people are aware of those things outside of our very small, technology sphere. Your average Joes and Janes.
So what did you think? We are in a genius revolution or another hype cycle?
Sorry, could you repeat that one for me?
Yeah. What do you think? Are we in a genuine revolution or it's another hype cycle? The
No, I genuinely think this is a revolution. I mean,
Like,
it's fundamentally changing how things are done. It is huge. It's interacting with how businesses are run, how jobs are performed, how technology advances. It's pushing technology. I think some of the almost like just I don't want to make it akin to the space race, but the space race pushed technology massively because there was a race to do something, but now is the AI race. I'm sure that's probably been coined before, but you know that it is put massive limitations on what capabilities we have in compute and data centers, memory and things like that, and it's pushing technology massively forward. I think because everyone wants to be on this AI train, so I do think it's revolutionary. Yeah. Yeah.
and what did you think, or the upcoming skills that's more important because of AI?
Oh, good one. So I'm going to stick on the human-centric topic because I'm sure people can talk about the technical certifications and the things you need to know from that perspective. But in keeping aligned with the topic of this convo, I think for me, the art of critical thinking about getting to understand businesses' true needs rather than just what they're telling you. A lot of people are reacting and saying, "I need an AI something. Give me some AI." And sometimes some technology and some AI is thrown at them, and there you go, you got some AI, brilliant. But it doesn't actually do anything of any value. Doesn't perform, potentially puts yourself at more risk than you were before you introduced AI. So it's about, for me, I think it's the human element of getting in and truly understanding what a business does, how what the valuable use cases are, how do their business processes work, and then developing something that truly helps and truly evolves how that business operates, and then making sure that there's some change management that is actually pulled into there. Now, traditional technology projects, lots of people talk about change management and hardly anyone does it. I think AI is a little bit different in the fact that if you don't introduce change management with your AI strategy, then you're on a route to failure. So I think now, it used to be, oh, I don't want to say optional because I love change management. I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
But it was always one of those things that was minimized on programs. I don't think you can afford to minimize change management on an AI program.
What's really interesting, I have worked a lot of years in education, and we are look what skills the people use in the future. And
Hmm.
there's I think it's economic graph from LinkedIn, and that's really cool tool. So you can see how have developed the yeah on the what job requirements they have on the job offers, and then they say
Hmm.
how have it developed, and you see, I don't know, I was in data science, and then you need Python, you need this R, SQL, and so on, and then yeah, now it's understand database and you can use AI, and then upcoming a lot of soft skill, communicate, ask business questions. So I think that's really interesting. I don't think it's all by coming by AI, but I think it's have an important impact here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, when or when we think, what I think, you can correct me. I see there are a lot of people they collect these certifications, yeah,
Hmm.
like all the Microsoft certification here. Did you think this have a future, or I'm a little bit, yeah, I don't know. I think it's certification collections, and there's also a website that only you can show your certifications. So
Hmm.
yeah, hmm, yeah, I'm a little bit. What did
You're on the fence there, are you? Around
yeah.
around certifications. I think there's a couple of things here. So, to start with, I've always been a big advocate of certifications. So for a couple of reasons. One, I think it gives people a little bit of structure, and it stops them, I think, getting too comfortable with what they know, and therefore always just, doing what they've always known. The technology is moving so fast that as you're forced to recertify and renew each year, you've got to keep on top of some of the gaps and some of the developments. You can't allow yourself to stagnate and not learn some of the new funky technology, so you're not putting in legacy approaches into applications. So I like it from that perspective, but I also see the downsides of it. As someone who suffers from imposter syndrome, like seeing constant reams on LinkedIn of, oh, this certification, this certification, this certification. It's kind of like it, experience and capability can't be replaced with a shiny badge. you know sh- the badges are good. It gives you a certain level of understanding, but you've got to apply that learning with experience and knowledge, the scars, that truly mean that you understand. Well, theoretically it says you should do that, but in reality you should do these two things first, otherwise that's probably going to fail. you know that's where the experience comes in. So I think that it's a double-edged sword. I think with certifications, I personally think they're great. I'm going through all my AI certifications now, all the ABs, and I think they're good for grounding people with a base knowledge as well. You know, Lots of people are transitioning into AI from another technology, or folding it into their experience. Now, if you just go into the doing without having a formal, good baseline structure of what AI is all about, and you just bowl into delivering solutions, guess what? Those solutions probably aren't going to be that great, because they're not grounded. Sorry to use the pun, but they're not grounded in a good foundation of knowledge around the history of AI, what AI means, how to develop AI use cases, and it stops people just, again, focusing on the technology.
And what did you think makes someone irreplaceable in an AI first world?
What makes someone irreplaceable in an AI world? Um, I don't know about irreplaceable. I'm not. I'm not. Do you mean from the perspective of AI, something that is secure from AI doing their job?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the time being, it's all about context. AI is incredibly good at, passing huge amounts of information and doing pattern recognition. It's phenomenal. They always say it's like akin to magic sometimes, but you know, without context, it does struggle without that human insight. So I think, you know, right now, I certainly don't see, humans being able to be replaced and taken out of the loop. Humans have always got to be in the loop, because they've got to, validate what's coming out of it, give it context. I was joking with Janet Robb the other day, and I was trying to get AI to make me a little graphic with a pie chart split into 4 segments. Gave me 3 segments. Every time I asked it, no matter which way I asked it, it would only ever give me a pie chart with 4 segments, even though I clearly stated I wanted 3. So we talk about sort of AI taking over the world and taking over everything. You know, there is there is still a lot of work to do, right? And I think humans are very, very important in that journey.
Awesome. So we will also talk a little bit about the imposter syndrome, and I think it's common in tech. But have you experienced yourself?
Yes, yeah, it's something I talk about quite a bit. I've got a couple of sessions on this. One about recognizing and understanding and dealing with imposter syndrome, because it's something that is an ongoing cause, if you like, for myself. But also I talk one around how AI can actually be an ally for imposter syndrome, which was taken from my personal experience, really, because I thought about AI being yet another technology, yet another thing I've got to learn. And it's kind of like, oh my God, it's more stuff I don't know, you know, and it plays on that. I must know everything, which is one of the characteristics of IS. But then I sort of flipped it on its head and went, actually, like no time before, AI is actually allowing me to learn more, understand more, plan more, you know, stop procrastinating on things. And actually it became a real enabler when I looked at it through a different lens. I was like, actually, this this amazing technology is actually helping me get past, or helping me mitigate some of those imposter syndrome characteristics. Procrastination. You know,
Mm.
I used to wait till the last minute because I was, afraid. I like, oh, I don't know even know where to start. There's too much information. How can I? How do I crack this nut? And then it was just like, well, AI comes along and goes, well, how about this 10-page starter on this document, and you can work it from there. You know, it's brilliant because most of the time you'll end up deleting those 10 pages, or taking the majority of that content out and making it your own, which is the important part of it. But it stops you staring at that blank page. It gets you started rather than going, oh, I'm going to leave that right to the last minute, which is going to cause a lot of stress and anxiety build up. So I think it's a great tool for tackling that.
Yeah, do successful people's securities struggle with self-doubt or more than we think, or have they overtake it and do it all good so they are successful?
Sorry, have security.
Yeah, if the successful people, they're, I think they're, I don't know. Is it that they secretly struggle with yeah, self doubt more than we think, or have they
Yeah,
overcome it to be successful?
yeah, I think, imposter syndrome is not, you know it's not something, some people think of it as almost wearing a badge sometimes, because you can be hyper focused and you're doing things really detailed, and typically you're, doing things to high levels of quality because you are concerned that you're going to be seen as a fraud. So but it's not something that's great to be in. It's something you need to mitigate, because it's not a thing to strive for. It's something to balance, right? But when you think about 7 out of 10 people either have imposter syndrome or have dealt with it at some point, because it's not you have it or you don't. Sometimes it comes in waves. It might be where you get a promotion, and you're feeling imposter syndrome for the few months after that promotion, and then you get acclimatized to your new role, and it ebbs away, and you feel more confident, and you go back to being, you're feeling like your normal self. But some people find it's a constant battle. There's something constantly pushing at you. So, you know 7 out of 10 people, the you know there's it's not just people who aren't leaders or managers in that bucket. You give When I've given talks, there's been 50, 80 people in a room, and I've gone through the different scenarios that mean, like, that's an imposter syndrome situation. And most of the time it's more like 80, 90% of the audience stick their hand up and say, yeah, I felt like that at one
Yeah.
point or another.
Yeah, I
So you
think
can't you can't escape it, I think, is my message there. So, whether you're a leader or an individual contributor, I think there's a high likelihood that you'll face it at some point.
I think MVPs feel always successful, but okay, there was there was wrong. But why did you, or where did it come from that high achievers often feel not good enough?
Where did it come from? Well, I think you're always raising the bar, right? I mean, you brought up the MVP thing, and it's a really good example, that, actually, because I've been MVP for 3 years now, just done my renewal. Fingers crossed on that. But you know, you get that sort of acclaim, and then you feel like the bar's been lifted again, and the bar never goes down. So, you reach a certain level of knowledge, and then, oh, there, you lift the bar up again, and then you lift the bar up again, you lift the bar up again. When I when I got my award, the volume of information that I did not know existed before that award, I suddenly, like, came into my inbox, and I was just absolutely inundated with a phenomenal level of extra information. But I was like, oh my god, my brain's going to explode. Like, how can I compute all of this stuff? You know, and you kind of have to adapt and learn and figure out how to filter what you're going to specialize in, because otherwise you keep lifting the bar. There's a sometimes an expectation to do more and more and more each year of MVP, because you're frightened of losing it. You know, you want to retain this tremendous acclaim, you know, but you know, it's just like, oh right, well I spoke at 5 conferences last year, so I probably need to speak at 7 this time, and then maybe start a blog and maybe a YouTube channel, you know, and you just keep moving that bar up. So I think it's good to be conscious of what level is required versus what level your brain is telling you is required. They're always different.
So, what did you think? I hear a lot of people say, "Yeah, it's we are you are both on LinkedIn. I think the most people in business are on LinkedIn, but social media are it's have the really big impact of the um yeah on the imposter syndrome. What did you think? Is it?
Yeah, I referenced this actually in one of my in one of my sessions, and I think it was called Twitter back then because I'm that old. But you know, y- I found I came off Twitter because it's or X, because it just I got too overwhelmed with that, because it's almost, I felt like I needed to keep up to date with the feed and try and absorb and learn everything. Um, so for me, I think social media does perpetuate that kind of like information overload characteristic for imposter syndrome. But I think part of my internal thing is I filter stuff now. So in my brain, I've got one of these little, you know, Boston Consulting Matrix squares in there around what I want to know and what I need to know. You know, there's
Mm,
certain stuff I need to know and want to know, which is great for my business. So that's my number one filter. Right, do everything. If I've got brain capacity, then I go to I need to know, but I don't want to know, because I need to know it for a reason. You know, whether it's for my job or the business or community or something like that. You know, that's my number two overflow. And then my number three is I want to know but don't need to know. It's like, oh, fabric's really exciting, really interesting. But you know what? I don't actually I don't need it directly for my job, but I really enjoy that subject. And I've got people in my network, you know, like Laura Graham Brown or someone like that. I go, experts, brilliant. I can go and use their knowledge. And then the really important box is that I don't want to know and I don't need to know. And it was a big realization for me that I was learning a lot of stuff in that fourth box. I was absorbing a load of stuff that I didn't need to know, that I didn't want to know. It was just in front of me. So I have this kind of like mental check now where I organize the stuff I'm looking at and go, right, which box does it lay in? One, two, three, four. And a majority of it is in four. And I go, you know what? Why am I even reading that? I don't need to know about that. You know, and that's become my personal tool for filtering information from social media, because it is like a fire hydrant. So that's my filter. That's my tip.
I think that's good tips against stress and burnout risk. So that's
Mm.
really cool. But why is it? I think so in mental health in IT. It's such yeah. I think a topic a lot of people yeah they want yeah. I don't know if they not want to talk about it. It's more I don't know. It's like yeah. It's so yeah. I think it's a it's a hard yeah.
You mean
I
they're kind of like concerned about showing themselves up by not knowing this, or not having that badge, or not having that accreditation.
but why we don't have I think I don't see I think it's the first after I don't know 40 years I'm old the first time I talk uh, about the topic mental health and IT
Hmm.
and no one does it is yeah I don't know why and or where did you see the problem that's not the people that the tech guys not speak about this topic.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just came off the back of the East of England Power Platform Summit, which was a fantastic event run by Duncan Boyne and a team over there. And what was fascinating was there was, I believe, at least 3 sessions on mental health there. Um,
Okay.
and that was fantastic to see at a tech conference. You know, people embracing this. So there was a panel, for instance, that I attended, which was fantastic on on men's mental health, specifically men's mental health. And what was interesting, there was as Amy, who was sort of comparing it and interviewing the guys, was like, one of the questions she said was, I think women find it easier to talk about their feelings and emotions more, and men are a bit like, grr, I can't talk about this. This is, emotions. I can't seem to be, the perception of being weak or something like that. So I think one of the guys said on the panel that I think the biggest problem with men's psychological safety and mental health is men, themselves and other men, and the perception that you can't be open and you can't be transparent and talk about these things. They're very, very real. And they affect a lot of people around us. We see it. Burnout is becoming something that is talked about more and more and more. It's a real thing, and it's devastating. you know so recognizing the signs of burnout, and in both yourself but also in others around you, is incredibly important. you know we've become blind to this sort of 120% utilization in the consulting world, where we're just constantly like at full tilt. Whether it's doing project work, whether it's continuous improvement, whether it's learning and personal development and career paths, and extracurricular activities. We've all got our lives as well, families and friends. And like, it's no, life is busy. I feel my life is more busy now than it's ever been before. And I don't think that's just because I've got a little 9-year-old running around, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are both founders, so I think we have a little bit more pressure than you work 9 to 5.
mhm.
So what's your tip to disconnect you from work mentally?
um, that's a really interesting point, actually. Um, I think top tip is, I find the hardest that transition from when you're working at home, that transition between work and home life. Before, several people have talked about this. Before, you used to have a commute. You used to have half hour, an hour each way. To go on a tube or go on a train or drive a car or something to get to work, and you had that buffer where you could come out of work, and all those ideas rattling around your brain, all that pressure and stuff, all that data is just rattling around, and it gives you time to just compress and absorb, and funnel it away into where it needs to, before you became dad or wife or husband, or whatever the duties are at home. And I think it's very easy to have no transition time, and that for me is quite high anxiety levels, where I just flick immediately from one personality to another, if you like. So I quite like to go for a walk or something like that after I finish work, just kind of get out, give myself some of that compute time. Sometimes it's just me sitting in a room, and just chilling out, playing a game on my phone or something, just something to give me a transition from, particularly from work to life. Life to work isn't so bad. It's the work to life transition point that I think is the hardest, personally.
Um, I think, or what did you think about mentorship? In yeah, or what role does mentorship play in confidence and growth?
Oh, huge. I'm a massive, massive advocate for mentoring and coaching. So I do quite a significant amount of mentoring and coaching myself, both volunteer for the community. I've got about 8 or 9 mentees at the moment, but I also do a formalized coaching and mentoring program through my company as well. It's huge. Um, we sometimes struggle alone, or a lot of us struggle alone through various amounts of adversity. And having someone who is there as a trusted advisor, a trusted friend, sometimes it's just to listen, Sometimes it's just you want someone to listen to what you're talking about, and then sometimes it's I want some advice, which is where mentoring comes in. Sometimes you want people to help coach you through a situation, not do it for you, not to give you the advice, but coach you in the right direction. And you draw on their huge amount of experience in those areas, which you can't read in a book. You can't get from a blog or a YouTube video or something like that. You have that personal connection with that individual, and it really drives your capability and your growth through the roof, I think. So having one or more, because you can have as many mentors as you like. But yeah, finding mentors, I think it will completely differentiate you, and really support your growth and development.
And yeah, we have this topic. How did you see? I think the community topic. How important is this in your journey?
uh again huge. The community has been everything. I think probably Chris Huntingford was the main sort of precursor to me getting into the community. He just set such a great standard and such a great scene for the community. I just wanted to be part of it. um but the biggest thing for me from the community was building out my network. I That meant I didn't need to be a superhero in everything. It meant I could be a superhero in my skill set, and I now have access to a huge awesome community of people who have expertise in different things. So I join their network to be a superhero for what I'm good at, and they join my network to be a superhero, access to a superhero what they're good at. So it's mutually beneficial, and just I can't put a measure on how important the community has been to my development, my growth. you know go back go back about 10 years, I didn't do any speaking or anything like that. And now I'm sort of regularly speaking on a monthly basis, and doing things like this, which I would never have done without the community. So yeah, massive advocate there. I couldn't be more grateful for the people I've met.
Okay, that's awesome. I think a little bit. How can I ask it? Uh, what what's something people misunderstand about successful, yeah, tech professionals? Um, or what makes a people? I don't know. I see all the people they are not in tech, and they say, okay, this guy only sitting for the PC, he cannot be burned out. He uh, yeah, they have. I don't know. Yeah, what did you think is the have non-tech people did understand misunderstand to yeah.
I think it's actually it's exactly that you've said there. You're sat in front of a computer doing stuff. How can that be stressful? And it's the acknowledgement that most of us in technology are overwhelmed with the rate of change and the breadth of information you have to digest and compute. Sometimes we're delivering stuff for customers and partners where we're only a hair's breadth in front of who we're actually delivering for, because the technology is that new. You've got this concept of frontier now. You've got these frontier items, so stuff is landing almost before it's been fully alpha and beta tested. It's coming in there, and we're testing it live, and we're all learning together. So there's an immense pressure there, and I think it's for non-technical people, it's understanding that most of the people you speak to will be wearing some form of mask, you know to become oh yeah, I'm the expert and I know everything. And it's the old adage of the duck, nice and calm on the surface, but the legs are paddling like mad underneath the water. So I think that probably be my what would be appreciated by non-tech people is the exterior cool calm is probably not what's going on underneath.
And is there, yeah, what have you received, or what was the best career advice you ever received?
Best career advice. Oh, I've received a lot of good stuff. I think I'm gonna repeat something that I talked about earlier, which is about the network. Um, so as I was, well, I still am introverted, but I'm less introverted than I was. But the advice to go out there and meet people and form bonds, form relationships, um, that has been huge for me. It's been huge for my confidence. It's been huge for my capability. It's we talk about that, or I talked about that art of communication, rapport building, and things like that. Going out there and building a network just develops so many skills and has so many uses. And I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't gone out and forced myself to develop a broader network. So I think the sooner you can do that, the better. If I could go back in time and talk to my former self, it would be, stop being so introverted, go out, meet some friends, build build that network earlier, because I think that would have propelled my development even more.
And at the start, we talk, you read a lot of books. So, is there any book you say this has changed your mind, or this it's a must read in my?
Oh, must read. The it changes, because I do read quite a few books, but my current must read is called the $1 Trillion Coach. And it's a phenomenal book. You can't see, but that's the authors. So it was um, it was actually, if you think it's all going to be about coaching, and there's a lot of coaching in there, but it's really at its core, it's a leadership book. And I just found it phenomenal. Like, there's so many good learning scenarios in the book, that teach you, just like, well, you know it's not about sort of command and control. It's about, just making sure that, you understand the people, and you can build things, and you can have a strategy and a vision, so you're not just, going through day by day, blow by blow. It's got so many learnings in there, and some great quotes around leadership versus management in there, and the differences. So that is a book I've read cover to cover, and I will probably read it cover to cover several more times before before the end of my career.
Okay, then we come to my favorite part, the rapid fire round.
I'm a little bit scared of this one.
Yeah, morning or night productivity?
I used to be a night owl, and I think I probably still am for gaming, but for work, I'm now early bird. I'm much more productive now that I'm old. I'm much more productive in the morning, but I'm still happy to play games until gone midnight.
One overrated technology.
Oh, sorry.
One overrated technology.
One.
One overrated technology.
Oh, one overrated. Sorry, that's my signal. One overrated technology. Um, oh, good. I would have said air fryers until I got one and realised actually how useful they are. But not a current one. But I mistakenly went down both the Zune path and the mini disc path. Which were clearly errors on my part. So yeah, they were definitely overrated. Why I thought being able to record almost all an album on a mini disc would be good.
What one habit you swear by?
One habit I swear by: um, continuous learning. Absolutely continuous learning. I never stop learning. So it's always having a mechanism to make sure that I'm always learning something.
What was the biggest lesson from your, yeah, from founding your company?
From setting up my company, um, biggest learning, prioritization, I think, is the biggest learning. So there's an awful lot to do when you're setting up a company. Some of it is vanity, just for looks and show, and some of it is the nuts and bolts that is critical to running the business. And it's being able to be very critical in your prioritization and making sure you're not focusing on busy work, you're actually focusing on what really is important.
And okay, we come to the end. So my last question is: if listeners remember only one thing from our conversation, what should it be?
Um, I'm going to go for the networking piece. I'm going to say, don't be alone for so many reasons. Don't be alone. Don't be that one person who is just absorbing information from the internet or various channels of information. Go speak to people, build relationships, build your network out. Your future self will absolutely thank you for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and staying here. So, thank you. This was awesome.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been awesome.